Anyways.
So you're mad hydrated on this.
We're mad hydrated all the time. And unfortunately, we're not drinking them right now, but I can safely say that a case
is on its
way this week.
Damn, that's great.
So shout out to our sponsors, Alaric Water. Anyways, Cold Pod, we have a special guest today on kind of the first spring day.
Yeah.
I feel like everything's like rejuvenated. I feel like we're all just like alive. We're also a week behind because we didn't pod with you last week.
Yeah, sorry.
And we also it's fine. And
we were so busy. It actually worked out.
Yeah, because we also just couldn't do one, so we didn't do one of just the two of us. Yeah. But we made it happen.
Christ has risen.
Christ has risen.
Logan Roy died on Succession. Spoiler alert.
Oh, he hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, really?
I didn't hear it. I didn't
hear it. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry,
shit. What a terrible beginning to this. I'm so sorry.
It's funny because before you got here, I was like,
have you seen it? I was like, no.
And I know the next thing I said was, do you know what happens? And he said, no. And I was like, okay.
Oh my, I'm so sorry.
I think my brain was able to black that out.
Okay, good.
I heard Roy has died. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
I think you can guess.
Yeah, but I don't want to guess.
Okay, that was bad.
Anyways,
I wish I could spoil something
Chandler
for my life.
Yeah, you're going to die at 65, Chandler. I know that actually, so it's a car accident.
Well, that's a great way to start this off.
Let's go.
Yeah, wow.
We have the director of I Like Movies here, Chandler Levack.
Yes,
welcome. She just spoiled Succession for me.
Oh my God, I should just leave right now.
I think maybe
that's
that
unforgivable.
Was good enough for us.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
And cue the outro music.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about the movie. I Like Movies. I watched it this morning.
Great.
And let me tell you, I don't watch movies in the morning, maybe ever. It was such a great movie to watch in the morning and
movie.
Start your day.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
that's
I
so sweet.
felt so many things, and I want to say, first of all, I actually like loved it.
Yeah, we both loved it.
loved it. I was like, holy shit, this is really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was incredible.
I was like laughing. I was crying. Yeah, it was great. It was a full movie experience. It really did.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for making it.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
But yeah, so I want to talk like tell us a little bit about how this came, because you shot this during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Or some sort of era of...
Yeah, I shot it at the height of the third wave of the pandemic, like
Okay.
at the most case counts, like in spring 2021,
right.
like about 2 years ago, like to the day. So yeah, it was like pre-vaccines. It was pretty gnarly, like kind of a terrifying environment on set, because it was really like high case counts, no vaccines yet. We had medics coming to set and like swabbing our noses every morning, and yeah, it was really like an intense environment. You couldn't buy anything in a store,
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like full like. How did you even do that then? If it was not lockdown though. It was like.
It was lockdown.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was.
Well, it started and it was like some weird, middle period where like the restaurants were open and
Right.
like my lead actor who's from Vancouver was like, yes, I'm in Toronto. I'm going to go see concerts. This is going to be great. And then like 2 days after he arrived, it was like full lockdown. Like
Fuck.
only takeout, only curbside pickup again. It was the time when in the city where like Doug Ford was like threatening to arrest people on the street, if they didn't have like proper papers, and he was going to have like police patrolling.
Yeah. Did he ever end up doing that?
I don't think so.
But it felt like, because it like, oh yes, you weren't here, but it like almost it like felt like it was happening, but I don't know if
the
it
threat
ever,
of it was probably enough to
there was like cops, driving slow when you were
Yeah.
like walking to the store. And
Yeah.
I was like, sorry.
Yeah, and like we couldn't afford to have extras, so like the only people who could be extras, I mean, you need a lot of extras because it's like a video store movie. So the only people who could be extras had to lie and say that they had COVID symptoms so they could go to a hospital and get like a pop-up test.
Oh,
and then present their paper to us saying that they had tested negative. And the only people who were willing to do that were my parents. So
Right.
like the most vulnerable people ever
Yeah,
were like,
yeah.
so I was like, okay, it's your first feature. Everyone on set is literally risking their lives and the lives of all their loved ones to like help you realize your first film. Like it's just, that's an absolutely insane context to be making art in.
I feel like the first feature already feels like that.
Yeah.
Like it already feels
Life or
like
death.
why is everyone doing this for me?
True. That's
and then
very
adding
true.
that on top.
But I think that's also there's definitely a silver lining to that, to know that people really like came through for you because they believed in it and wanted it to happen, you know.
And I
because-
think that can be felt in the movie. Like it feels homegrown.
yeah.
Yeah, I
and
feel
passionate.
like I worked with so many talented people that really were so creative and resourceful and really like shined and brought like their immense talents to the project. Like, and it was for all of us, for a lot of us, it was all of our first feature. So it's like my producer Lindsay and Evan's first feature. It was Claudia Del Orso, who did my production design's first feature. Rico Moran, my cinematographer's first feature. Courtney Mitchell, my costume designer's first feature. So like, yeah, I feel like in a way it was positive because, you know, we had something to kind of focus our energy on. And after being, you know, in lockdown for about a year and a half, like to actually be around other human beings again, your own age, like it was so weird because I'd been living with my dad for most of the pandemic. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now I'm with like 25 people all the time, like making this project. So in some ways that was really, really wonderful. And it was really like a creative, like fertile environment on set.
Was there also like some kind of, because I feel like you on a regular day, you might be kind of ungrateful about being able to surround yourself by that many people and like in that environment, but was there some kind of like extra gratitude you had going into filming that you were like, you know, obviously there was the anxiety, but there also must have been some excitement to be like, I get to do this where most people don't.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that every day. Like I can't believe this is happening. It sucks that it's happening in this way, but you know, everybody is safe and you know, I'm really excited about what we're making, and I really love collaborating with all these people and the actors especially. So, yeah, I think you have to feel like that, I guess, making a film all the time. Like, I can't believe all these people are helping. I don't know. It's weird with filmmaking because I think there's such a stigma of like the director being like the sole person that's responsible for the movie, and we attribute so much to them, but you don't realize that it's like so many people, like, you know, burning the midnight oil and carrying so much and putting
there's so many moving parts. It's like it's the kind of thing where as soon as one thing is not working, then the whole thing is not working. You know?
Totally.
But I feel like it must have been like just really like I've been thinking a lot about this because I scored a film. It was at my friend's first
Verona. I saw it at Kingston.
Cool.
Yeah.
But it was the kind of thing where I feel like everybody, and I relate to what you were just saying, where everybody working on that was also, it was their first feature-length film. And I think that what comes with that is you sort of get this like, everybody wants you to win. Everyone's working together on this thing because like it's everyone's like first shot at it.
Totally.
And I think it just sort of, it's like, I think like, and it feels like it comes across in your film where it just feels like you can just kind of, you feel that like you just like want, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I was just watching it this morning, just being like, yeah.
You can tell it's like the product of one like deeply insane 32-year-old woman who's like, I need that PT Cruiser.
We were talking about this because we were saying like every movie is the product of some insane person.
Yes.
It's insane to make a movie.
Yeah,
like,
it's so true.
Insane.
And you're right. Like sometimes it's literally like Werner Herzog being like, I will like drag this boat up this mountain. But it feels like that even if you're just like in a video store with some DNs.
Right.
Metaphorically.
Well, so hold on. So with the video store, I was reading that you guys, first of all, you built the video store for the movie.
Yeah.
But did you not like go to like an abandoned Blockbuster and like fill it up with all the like tell me about this.
Yeah. So I was like, I had this vision of like exactly the kind of video store that I want, and we had no money because it was a micro budget, also like a talent to watch project.
Yeah.
So you know, you can't really rent or create that stuff because it'll never look. It's so specific. What those weird shelves and the front counter and the style of computer and
even
the cart.
the carpet.
Yeah, like the carpet.
Yeah.
And my executive producer Vicky Lean texted me a photo one day, and it was just a guy standing in front of a giant Blockbuster, and she was like, my friend is in Owen Sound right now at his cottage, and there's this giant abandoned Blockbuster there. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you should film the movie there. Like, you should find out what this is. So I like looked it up online, and then I like kind of traced it on Google Maps, and then I saw that there was like a pet store nearby. So I called the pet store, and I was like, who's your property manager? And they gave me the guy's number. And then I called this guy, and I was like, hi, I'm shooting this film and it's a video store movie. I see that you have this like abandoned Blockbuster. Like, do you know if it's still operating or what's there now, or if anyone is like leasing it? And he's like, oh, I've never been there. I think it's been sitting empty for like 15 years. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
And I was like, well, can I come and visit it? Like, would you let me in the building? We could see if we were going to shoot there. And he was like, sure. So we drove up, and then he was there, and he unlocked the door, and it was like a perfect like time capsule. Like all the computers were still there, all the shelves, the front counter, the TVs, the like little DVD cart. Like it was like going back in time. It was so surreal. But it was also like the walls were like caving in, and the carpet was green, and it like was 100% leaking asbestos. And so like my producer was like, we could never shoot here because it's like dilapidated.
Yeah.
Like I think teens used it to like party and have sex.
As they do.
little party, little secret party house.
But she was and I was like, but we have to do it. Like, how are we gonna? I was like, we'll shoot it all, no one's sound. And she's like, no, Chandler, we can't.
Yeah.
So then, she was like, go back to him and see if maybe he'll just give you the stuff, and then we could like move all that stuff into like another location. Right. So that's what we ended up doing.
Were there movies there too?
There were no movies. Okay. Yeah, it was just kind of the bare bones of everything. Yeah. But I remember going there with my production designer. We had this cube truck and we filled it with everything. And I was like behind the counter with like, an X-Acto knife, like cutting all these wires, like hoping I wasn't going to get electrocuted.
Yeah.
Taking like a giant saw to like the front counter, like carving out like everything. Wow. And so it was really crazy.
Well, it's crazy to think about things like, honestly, like, a DVD shelf. Which is like clearly like like made to fit DVD, like what
they
I
don't
mean?
make those
like
anymore.
they definitely don't make those anymore.
And if we tried to create it, like that would be our whole budget.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
that.
Yeah, that's so lucky that you got that.
It was like this really like in that moment kind of this like benevolent like hand of God being like the universe is on your side. Like, I think that's what I love so much about filmmaking. Like it just feels like sometimes it's like there you feel like omnipotent or something, like you're like willing things into like fruition, and you have these like impossible dreams of what you want to execute, and then like somehow you just like make it happen. And I really get off on that.
Most people don't get to manifest reality as much as filmmakers do,
and most people don't get to find abandoned Blockbusters. Like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And then my production designer Claudia, who's a total genius, she installed it in this like empty thrift shop in Ajax. And then the first day that I walked in there, it was like so surreal. Like I was like, oh my God. I never thought I'd get to like push a DVD card on a carpet again. What a nice feeling. And then it looked so realistic that people in Ajax started like coming in because they thought it was a real video store.
No way.
And we
trying to rent movies.
And they'd be like, what do you guys have? And I'm like, oh no, you can't. This isn't a video store. They're like, but you have movies. Like, can I rent like Rules of Attraction? I was like, no, it's a set. And like they wouldn't leave. Like they were so disappointed. So we had to make a giant sign that said, this is not a video store. It is a set.
Wow.
As if there would actually be a video store that reopens.
Yeah, it's like, come on guys.
They were so excited though. I think it just speaks to how much people really miss video stores.
I remember there was that long winter. Or no, it wasn't long winter. It was what's the Toronto Nuit Blanche, where there was a Blockbuster like video front.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a Blockbuster storefront, but it wasn't actually a storefront. It was on like Queen West somewhere, and it was part of the installation. I remember when that came out, it was like we were all like, "Whoa!"
Wait, you couldn't go in though?
No, you couldn't go in.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it wasn't the same, but it had the same effect.
Yeah,
where I was
like, well, what you got to do is you got to, how like those like Netflix things have like the Stranger Things experience.
Oh yeah.
Do the I Like Movies experience. you can just go like rent a movie.
That would be amazing. Pizza subs for everyone.
Yeah.
Damn. So you worked in a video store, right?
Yeah, I worked at Blockbuster in high school.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
You really did the Quentin Tarantino thing.
Yeah, I did the thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess my experience was pretty similar to Lawrence's in that I was like a huge nerd and cinephile, and I'd be like, oh, I see you are renting XXX. May I also suggest the Trois Couleurs trilogy? And they'd be like, leave me alone, little girl. And I'd be like, okay. Yeah, I guess I thought there was like a funny irony to like someone, especially in high school when you're like, your whole identity is this like thing that you love and you make it everything about that. And, you're like trapped in this place that's like very suburban and you feel like nobody can understand what you're into, and it's like your last year of high school and like everything's about to change, but you're not quite there yet, and you just have to like shine it on a little bit longer. And you're so pretentious, but also such a loser. Like I felt like I'd never seen a movie like that, like about teen movies. Like usually people are like things actually happen to them.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, it's even like the Fablemans, which like, you know, similar year, or like came out the same year, which is like, you know, I mean, probably true to his experience, but still is this insanely romanticized vision of like a guy who can make films, right?
Totally.
It's like he's making amazing movies, you know?
Yes.
Like,
Your film ends with going to Carlton.
Yes. Yeah, I felt like it was also really important, to show like a movie about kind of a young man where it's like, you're not a genius. You might not have any talent at all.
But you can try, but
like, why don't you start by like asking someone a question?
So, well, was that the major kind of intention behind, you know, casting and making the character a man?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, I'm sort of interested in that idea of like toxic film bros and are they born or are they made, and you know, is there like a way to set them on a path of like healing before it's too late, you know, because you know, I know some like grown-up Lawrences that didn't get the message, and you know, I think
they didn't have Alana.
They didn't have an Alana, and I think about what those guys must have been like in high school, and you know, is there a way that maybe I don't know, like, and you know, I feel like there's a lot of movies like that are made by Lawrences and entirely from their position, and you feel like in those movies they're always just rewarded and like told they're a genius, and their opinion is totally like validated the whole way through. And
PTA.
I love PTA.
I can tell I
love licorice pizza. And I don't know, I was like interested in kind of a completely unromanticized version, and I think that women, I've said this a few times, but I think that women are often just like told that they can only tell stories about other women, which obviously makes sense. I mean, there's such a disparity of like female characters on screen, and but there's maybe it's interesting to for women to tell stories about men from like a different angle than maybe they can see themselves at. And I like writing male characters.
Well, I think that was a really interesting thing. I remember there was a feeling when I was watching the film, I was like, men aren't like this. Like teenage boys aren't like this. And then I really started thinking about it, and I was like, holy fuck, like we really are. And it actually, I mean, it fully showed me but it fully showed me a part of myself that I mean, I wasn't quite Lawrence level, but I was, you know, still like a film nerd in high school. And it was a part of myself that I had kind of ignored. And that in this movie, it was like, made me question whether or not I was that. And the final summation of that was, I was, or at least had tendencies similar. And it was,
I kind of had the same thing.
Right?
But with music. But I had kind of that vibe where I was kind of like, fuck, like, was I a little bit like that? Like, just the sort of like, you know, overly pretentious, like, I'm going to be great one day. Like,
just
you know what I mean?
Feeling like you were a genius already. Without any of the weight of like.
Well, I never went that far. I never thought I was a genius, but
there's something underlying there, you know? Like, there's some kind of feeling where you feel like you are great. And you're just waiting for the world to realize it, you know? And I think that's kind of what Lawrence is going through. And then it's like this kind of humbling of him to realize that he's not there yet. And he has a lot of work to do, you know?
Yeah, it makes me think a lot about just sort of like how, even in the filmmakers that I've interviewed as a journalist, like you could sort of tell that you like being a great filmmaker is like being curious about other people and like actually being in touch with humanity. And like sometimes I would interview filmmakers, and even if they made great movies, I'm like, oh well, this person could never actually be like a great artist because they're like in love with themselves and they can't really see past their own like blinkered point of view, and they're not really interested in other people. They're only interested in kind of affirming their own
like mythology.
Mythology is such a great word. And viewpoint, and like, you know, like really being an artist is like having compassion for other people and sort of understanding other people's point of view, and not like trying to like enforce your viewpoint on everyone else, which I think I still struggle with.
Totally.
So maybe writing this character was a bit cathartic for me too.
Well, I think like, I mean, we were talking about this earlier with like, you can feel when a film is like pushing towards some kind of wondering, like it still is wondering about itself, and it's still trying to like get to something that it doesn't quite understand versus a film that's just like, no, I understand this so wholeheartedly and I'm going to tell everybody about how I understand this, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And I think those like, I love films that have a sense of wonder and awe and a sense of like unknowing about them, you know? And this film I feel like had that, where it was still like, and I think it came from a kind of sympathetic view of this kid, you know? It wasn't like this kid is bad or the other characters are good. It was like, you know, it's nuanced in that sense, and it had a sense of like, well, like, let's actually figure this out instead of just pointing fingers.
Yeah, I really want him to be okay.
Yeah.
But I think that it's also like people, especially in this way that like media is being perceived right now, like people really just want characters to be like good or bad. Like they just want them to be like completely like blank slates that like everyone can project their feelings into, have no flaws whatsoever. And I don't think life is like that. And I also wanted to kind of end on this like open note where it's like, okay, yeah, he's like learned this valuable lesson of like, I guess, spoiler alert, questioning, you know, asking people questions, sort of making room for other people's interests. But like, is he just using that to further double down on his own like manipulation? And like, is he kind of like learning the tools of being like a so-called good person and how to like make friends? But is he just like further enabling his own like narcissism, or is he actually capable of changing?
Yeah, that's because that last. Yeah, I guess we shouldn't spoiler.
I mean,
yeah, but that last scene.
I've already spoiled.
That's kind of
that last scene.
A lot of spoilers already.
That last scene definitely walks that line where he's like trying to ask questions, but he's not really. Like, you know, he's LARPing as a character. Person, you know?
But I do feel at the end you do kind of like you're like because like at times in the movie you're kind of like, oh, fuck off. But then like in the end, but in the end I was kind of like I was like rooting for him, you know. I was like I hope school does. I hope you do well in school. I hope you enjoy yourself.
I know. I feel like sometimes like I can't watch it anymore because I've seen it like probably 400 times, and at this point it's actually like self-harm to watch the movie for me. But the times that I have like taken a break and then watched it again like front to back with an audience, I'm like, there's always a point where I'm like, oh, this person is like profoundly fucked. Like they're never going to like they are a bad person. And then by the end of it, I'm like, okay, maybe he's going to be okay.
Well, what do you think? As the writer, what do you?
I don't know, because I don't think it's my place to really, you know, put any like.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I guess the audience should.
Yeah. No, as I was saying that, I was like, wait, don't answer.
I guess I hope for him. You know, because I hope for myself.
Okay, another thing I really wanted to talk about was 2003.
Oh, sick.
Because so much of it was so perfectly 2003 Canadian. And the first thing I want to talk about was the Swollen Members song.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like, I had that moment when that song came on in the movie. The first, 12 seconds, I was like, wait, what the fuck is this? And then when I heard like, Swollen Members got a da-da, I was like, whoa. But it's like these little things that are so specific to the time, but also so specific to Canada. Because let's be honest, Swollen Members, they never broke outside of Canada. Like anyone listening to this in the States is going to have no idea who Swollen Members are. But like, I just loved the fact that there were just so many like small little details about so many Canadian things. And I wanted to ask just about like Canada and how you feel about like presenting, you know, an era, a little slice of life of a very specific time in Canada. Because I feel like certain things or references that I got, obviously a lot of people won't get.
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, I feel like I just want to make films that are like unabashedly Canadian. And it always bothers me that Canadian films have to like masquerade as something else and that, you know, we don't really like tell our own stories, like especially, you know, in like English Canadian cinema. Like I think Quebec cinema is really good at that, but it's like Canadian cinema is either like Toronto or like a Newfoundland fishing village, and like that's it. It's either like bleak miserableism or like, you know, kooky Winnipeg stuff or like a bland amorphous like nothing. And I just think Canadian culture is like really fascinating and funny, and it's like it is powerful when like you watch a Canadian movie and you're like, oh shit, like, and it's not some like twee love letter to Toronto where like they put the CN Tower in every shot.
And you see, that's the funny thing, because I feel like it dances the fine line of being Canadian, but not. And like in my notes, I'd written Canadian versus too Canadian.
Right.
And what I meant by that was just the fact like you're talking about these like the sort of twee like CN Tower, the sort of like romanticized like beauty of Canada.
The Six, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
the
not like
Six.
it's not tourism. It's
Yeah,
not-
exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much of Canadian
Exactly.
films feel like they're like tourism attracted, like
Yeah.
trying to get tourists. you
Yeah,
know?
we're not
Totally.
we're not trying to like bring people to Burlington. Well, maybe we are.
Yeah, but it also like I feel like his identity crisis is kind of paralleled in the like Canadian identity crisis, you know, and like especially when there's that comment like I don't want to be a Canadian
Yeah.
filmmaker.
Yeah.
I also wrote that down. 'cause I was
Yeah.
like, when I heard that, I was like,
It's so
pause. I was like,
good.
damn. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's like the weird thing about being Canadian. It kind of relates to what we were talking about like ambition and sort of like feeling like you're too big for where you're from, and what's the responsibility of being a Canadian artist and like telling Canadian stories on screen, and how do we do that without making just propaganda? Because obviously the country has such a rich history and such a fucked up systemic issues.
Yeah.
But also, how do you make movies that are like actually like funny and accessible and
Yeah.
like
Relatable.
entertainment? They're not like just poverty porn or like I don't know, like miserable. Like I just kind of want to like have a level of joy and a point of view and excitement to them.
Do you think do you think it took time to get there? Because like I often felt growing up, and I'm going to assume that you did as well, but this sort of like, and again with the character like wanting to leave, this sort of idea of being like, you don't, and I'm guilty of it too. For years I'd be like, oh, Canadian shit just sucks. Canadian music sucks. It all sucks. But it doesn't suck. But this is sort of this feeling of just being like, you don't want to be a part of it because you don't want to be associated with it. And I feel like a lot of
Well,
us,
you want to be bigger than it. Like you know, it's
I guess it's about, I guess it is being bigger than it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think about it often because something changed in me at a certain point where I was like, no, like I am Canadian.
yeah.
I am Canadian.
I am Canadian. No, but you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
like I feel like it took time to get there because so much of my life was like very much like running away from it and not wanting to be associated with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I had, when I was younger, like I had such a sense of pride when I got to start writing for like American magazines.
Right, yeah.
Like, ooh, now I'm like really like a worthy artist because I'm Americans want to work with me or something, which is really messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, I feel like it is a really exciting time for Canadian film, and there's a lot of really very cool, uncompromising, exciting artists that are working right now, and they're and they have really rich, like idiosyncratic voices and aesthetics and points of view and stuff. So it almost feels like I'm making films because I want to. I'm so. It's so exciting to be like part of my or show a movie that I can be considered a peer of like these other filmmakers that I really hold up and look up to and place on such a high pedestal of like great art.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we're making films for each other,
Right.
which is exciting.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, this movie's good for being Canadian. Like
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
when I was a film critic, like writing for like Eye Weekly and stuff, I had an editor there and he'd be like, oh, we give Canadian movies an extra star.
Wow.
Like he's like, this isn't like a 2.5 star review. This is a 3.5 star movie because we have to give them like a fighting critical chance.
Right.
And there's already a stigma that they're not
Yes.
good enough. So
Yeah.
you actually have to be like generous. To,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
it's almost like, like your civic duty as a
Yeah, you can't
critic.
You can't shit on your
which I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, and now I'm like, and I remember at the time because I was like 21, I was like, how dare you? But now I'm like, in a weird way, like that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like most Canadian movies, like they're going to make like, if they're really lucky, like 15 grand at the box office,
Yeah.
20
Right.
grand at the box office. Like in any other system, especially in the United States, like these filmmakers would all be like, never work again. Like your movie cost $5 million and you made $40,000.
Yeah,
like
you're
you don't
finished.
get like a pat on the back and like a participation ribbon.
You don't
like
get 3 stars.
Yeah.
From Eye Weekly.
yeah. But so it's so weird. I mean, such a weird system. It's like you're getting money from the government to produce art, but it's like tied in with like money and celebrity and marketability and stuff. But then you're kind of setting these movies up to fail because you're like not marketing them.
Yeah.
And nobody goes to watch them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, look, we did it, congratulations. Like, what do you, and you get a Canadian Screen Award at the end, like Howie Mandel like announces your name on stage.
No.
I don't know, but so I feel like almost like, I guess I just want to double down on that and sort of be like, okay, if I'm making Canadian art, which I am because I'm a Canadian artist, like I'm going to make really uncompromising Canadian art. And I'm really going to tell stories that like reflect my own experiences, because why would I want to make something that looks like this amorphous, like nothing place? Like I'm going to set it in like the lame suburban place that I grew up in and make it like unabashedly Burlington, Ontario. Cause why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of pondered this, like, what is Canada lacking in our films? Like, what is the thing that doesn't hold up?
Well, because I was even just gonna say, I was about to ask, do you feel like Canadian cinema has gotten better? Like, because again, you talking about these films back, say like 10 years ago or whatever. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, like they just kind of sucked, and now they're getting good. But I can't tell if they're getting good or if I just didn't give them a fair chance before, and now I am, or if it's your film is actually really good and it's just better than all the other ones. I don't know.
I don't know, because I feel like they're sort of marketed like, like if you're a good person, you'll go see this movie in theaters. Like be a good person and watch a Canadian movie. Like have some broccoli, And you can't do that. I mean, you can't like guilt people into seeing movies. Like it doesn't make any sense. So and it's like we don't really have a star system. Mm-hmm. So like people aren't like, ooh, Robbie Amel's in this movie, I'm going opening weekend. So that I like Robbie Amell. He's listening. Come on the pod. But like, so like I feel like it's not like American film, and even the Canadian films that have like your token like American celebrity, like those also seem to like be doomed to fail. So is it the country? Like I don't know, I think it's like
sensibility. Like it's so strange to me. I can't figure it out.
I feel like the Canadian films that really like endure and I guess stand the test of time, that are like truly great, they're just like very idiosyncratically like deeply artist driven. Like they just, the person who's making them like isn't trying to make them for any other reason, in that they like have this purity of vision. So, and those are the films that I really admire and like look up to, and I think there are a lot of those artists that are like really coming out right now.
I mean, I can feel it. It feels like there's something happening.
And I think there's also like a younger generation. It's not, we're not invoking the same three names that we have since the 90s. They're actually like emerging auteurs, and we all know each other. We're all making films together and with each other and stuff. So
it's a new wave. Like it really is. And that's the whole thing about like, French New Wave and all these different film movements, is that they were peer revised, and like there was this community that was making them. It wasn't just one person. It wasn't just Godard that was making movies. It was Godard and Truffaut that were making movies, and a bunch of other people around them, and they were building off of what the other person did.
Yeah, totally. And I think also, and it's also like, there's indigenous voices, and there's people of color, and there's queer filmmakers, and it's women, and it's not just like also like they're all coming from like one kind of a dude
perspective.
Totally.
I mean, I think there's certainly like aesthetic things that people are like influenced by. Like I think Kaz Radwanski's totally like the Truffaut of the Canadian New Wave, and there see so many filmmakers that are kind of inspired by him. But he's such an incredible model. Like he's always done stuff, with his friends, like low budgets, like making films entirely on his own terms and totally independently. Like, and he makes really, really good movies that are funny and interesting.
He's coming on soon.
He's coming on the pod.
Oh, great.
I got some homework to do, guys.
He'll have lots of stuff to say. And like Matt Johnson, I think like actually like, talking to Telefilm and being like, this doesn't work. And like, your movies suck. And like, literally was like, okay, instead of giving like, instead of just putting the money towards like one Adam McGowan movie, like give 50 filmmakers like $150,000 and like, let's see if, maybe not all of these are going to be like totally like game changing things, but like there's some really good stuff that's going to come out of there. You're really going to see like a new wave of
and
voices.
And all you kind of need is one to then inspire the rest, right? Like, yeah, Kazakh is one guy who like made films, and people were like, "Oh, we can do that as Torontonians, as Canadians." Like, really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I certainly like never felt like I could make a film. Like, I think that's why I still am like a critic. Like, and did that because I was like, I could never be an artist. Like, I never saw myself making a film. I just, interviewed filmmakers forever and silently resented them or something. But, like I really did want to do it. I was just scared, but I didn't know anybody that kind of shared my own voice or sensibility and I didn't have that many people that like encouraged me to do it. So it really took like a long time to be like, okay, like I've been repressing this for so long.
But as a critic, this is interesting. As a critic making a film, that's really interesting to me because, and I say critic as somebody who did this professionally. It's very fascinating to be a critic and then to make art. How do you then feel about those critiquing your work? Do you critique the critiques? I mean, you must.
I mean, I certainly read everything. I'm certainly like obsessively checking I'm checking you, right? No. I like my letterbox account. Like, and it's really weird to get like that much real time feedback. And I'm lucky that my film's been received really positively because if it hadn't, I would be like, who knows what would be going on right now.
Like, no. You'd have to write something.
But it is interesting. I guess it made me think a lot about like, what is criticism and like what's the value of it? Because, a lot of times journalists are like just sort of reciting the plot of the movie and then that's it, or repeating things that have already been said in the press release.
It's just the press
or
release
they're getting like huge facts wrong, like the character's name, or like mixing the name of the mom with like Alana and like
I like movies take place in Belleville.
I think film criticism is a very like important part for filmmaking, and
it is
and, I mean, again, you see this in the French New Wave, not to bring it back to that, but like they were all critics, they're all writing for like Here to Cinema, and like and they were writing critiques as a form of making movies, and then they were making movies as a form of writing critiques.
Interesting.
And that's kind of what you're doing too. Like,
I feel like my film is such a meditation on filmmaking, and it's like it's like the most movie critic movie to ever exist. Like,
and it's kind of a critique of Canadian films themselves in saying, we can do all this. We can make a Canadian film while still being entertaining and not losing that edge,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots and lots of really entertaining Canadian movies that have come out in like the last 5 years even that are like spectacular. But I really want to make comedies, and like I don't see a lot of comedic Canadian filmmakers coming out, especially female comedian. And so that's really important to me. Like I really want to write jokes.
Because the movie was really funny.
Oh, thanks.
Like I was like I was like watching it again this morning, and I was like laughing out loud. And I was like, what are you watching? Like, go away.
I got to watch it in the theater, which was an awesome experience.
Oh,
it was
that's
like,
so cool.
It was at TIFF, which is just, I mean, obviously, again, there's that like Canadian specificity to it that just like you could feel everyone in the room being like, oh yeah, and like, but then also just like laughing beyond those references.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I was just in Cleveland like 2 weeks ago, and I kind of sat in for like the last 20 minutes or so, and like when that Le Chateau joke happens about her earrings, like just dead silent.
Le Chateau. I was like,
it would be really interesting to see how an American audience would receive it.
But I don't think it's that foreign.
No, it's and it's also not that like there's not so many references that the jokes are only those.
Yeah, it's almost as if they're like Easter eggs in a sense to an American audience. You know, it's like if you get that little reference, it's going to be funnier. But it's not going to be not funny if you don't get it.
Yeah, totally. But it's like, I don't know. We've been watching American culture for so long.
Yes.
Like, like my whole life, I've like every like I just assume you get a Jeep on your 16th birthday with a giant red ribbon on it, and like
still waiting for mine.
And like Freddie Prinze Jr. takes you to the prom after you take your glasses off. And, like I feel like my whole life was just like really absorbing all these tropes about like what an American like teen coming of age experience was supposed to be. And so like I don't know, I just feel like Canadian filmmakers were just like, I don't know, have the audacity to tell our own stories. Like it's so simple, but it's weird how Canadians just don't do
it's
it.
so relatable, and I've never seen something again like if you reference any of these movies, you know, Superbad, Clueless, anything like that. It's all they all have this like. It's like, you know, I grew up in the city, wasn't really car culture, so that part doesn't make sense to me. Or it's like just like, you know, those like outdoor high schools, you know, like in the city
the
and
lockers.
stuff.
Superbad's a really funny reference because like that
They're made by Canadians.
For Point Grey.
True, I guess you're
It was
right.
written for Point Grey in Vancouver. And there's like, you know, a lot of my friends went to Point Grey, and they're like, yeah, like that teacher is a real teacher, you know, and like, obviously the actor played them, but like they're like, we know that teacher and that's exactly how they behaved and stuff like that. But you know, it's still set in America.
Yeah,
and there's so many things that like going to the way that the liquor store is set up, and that's totally different here. You know, like there's plot elements to that story that don't actually make sense in Canada. You know.
Yeah,
but it's written about Canada.
The next film that I want to make is set in Montreal, like in Mile End.
So I read this and I was like
really excited.
I was like, holy shit! I was like, if you need any help, I was there.
I will send you my script. I love some notes on it. It's about the Montreal music scene in 2011.
I was there.
Oh, great! Yeah, we were probably at some of the same loft parties.
I'm sure we were.
Torn Curtain.
Torn Curtain. What's the other one?
Silver
Door. Yeah.
Le Poisson.
Oh yeah.
The fish one. I don't know. Oh yeah, Silver Door. Was that on Park?
Silver Door was on Park. Yeah. Fuck. No, but anyways, when I saw that, I was just like, you know, have you read Rowley's book?
I see you have it right there.
Yeah.
Can I borrow it?
Yeah, you can actually.
I really want to read it.
Because there's a section in that book that is literally Montreal 2011, and if you were there, it's maybe the funniest thing I've ever read.
Wow.
Just because I'm like, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting too, like to kind of mythologize, like, I don't know, these periods of Canadian culture too, and sort of like build like mythologies about.
Yeah.
I don't know, and just like Quebec Anglo tensions and like that kind of Anglophone experience is really fascinating.
Well, there was always a divide, especially in like a Montreal 2011. It was very Anglo. You know, like there was a separate scene of Francophones doing probably the same shit, but they almost never they never crossed.
Interesting.
Like it was very strange. It was a lot of like McGill students being like, we make experimental music.
Until they have to leave and go back to Toronto. Yeah, it was like all dudes from Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere's filled with dudes from Edmonton.
They really spread like wildfire in like 1 year.
Shout out dudes from Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then they like all became famous.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I
mean, I came from Toronto and I'd always wanted to live there, and I just moved there for a summer, and the first time I went to like Torn Curtain, I was so intimidated because I was like, wow, these people are real artists. Like they're not like career artists the way that people in Toronto like are just kind of waiting to go to New York and get their O1 visa. Like these people are really doing it for real. Yeah. And like I'd never really, I mean, it sounds lame, but I'd never really like partied before in that way where like you go somewhere at like midnight and you stay until 7 a.m. and you walk out and like the sun's out, and I don't know, it like really the way that like it made me think about like art making and creativity and just it was really like incredible.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful too, just and the sort of comparing it to, because I moved there in 2011. But yeah, just kind of like moving from a place like here where, people have roommates and stuff and whatever, but like there's not really many lofts. Like there were certain ones on Sterling and blah, 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 but there it really felt like this, like, people had these like artist spaces and like they would make art and they'd make music and then they would go do these parties and these installations. It all felt very like connected.
For sure.
Whereas here it felt a little more like, but I have my own negative opinions about Montreal in that era. I'll save those for another time.
I mean, it was also very racist and sexist and toxic and like misogynistic and
also just
fucked
like
up.
People were really mean, like really mean. Really? Yeah, it was a very like almost comically pretentious. like kind of like Lawrence. It was like people that just like people that like
but
went,
with synths.
but people who just like went to like, you know, maybe instead of Carlton they went to McGill, and maybe they didn't get the message, and maybe they were just like, you listen to da da da. Well, okay.
So that would have been a very different ending to the film
Yeah.
if he went to,
He went to McGill. True.
Then we would
Oh,
have known
he would
exactly
love
how
to
he-
go to McGill.
You would have, that would have been
Yeah.
his dream.
I know. Why didn't he? He could have. I think you can have 3 schools on your OUAC application.
He only wanted the one.
The only
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
I only applied for Ryerson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't apply anywhere else because I was kind of like, I was at the point where I was just like, if I don't go to Ryerson, I'm probably not going to go to school.
Whoa.
And then I got into Ryerson and then went to film school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's so
Thank God
cool.
I got into Ryerson.
It's also funny because
Well, I don't know.
when I was watching the film, I was like, this is so Austin.
There are a lot of parallels.
Like I was just like, damn. Like you've like even things he said in the movie, you've like said to me.
Like what?
Like there's what was the
Like
part where-
Shrek isn't real cinema.
Hey, no, I love Shrek.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, Shrek
good.
is sick.
I love Shrek.
No, but there was oh my god, what was the part? It was
Probably something
about.
about PTA.
Well, that, but also something about like Kubrick being his favorite, like at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's totally.
And
how
that was
I-
like,
yeah.
I was like, fuck, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I
I'm always like, yeah, that's my favorite filmmaker, and the next week I'm like, yeah, it's actually this guy now.
yeah, you're like it's we've moved on now, but
Amazing.
yeah, the
Yeah.
character.
But Paul Thomas Anderson has been the through line, and for a long
Yes.
time. And obviously, like you look at me, you can probably say that my favorite filmmaker is Paul Thomas Anderson.
tall white guy.
Pretty fucking obvious.
I love him too.
But there's a stereotype there, but there's also, I think, a different, like it's different, I think, than being a Quentin Tarantino fan, you know? And there's so much Paul Thomas
Some
Anderson
Lawrence
DNA in this film. Yeah, we're going Lawrence.
I know.
mode
Let's
here.
go. Let's go.
I
Lawrence.
love it. I love it.
There's so much Paul Thomas Anderson DNA in this film.
Yes.
Which I think is like starting to happen culturally, where it's like Paul Thomas Anderson is starting to, like I watched Babylon, right? And Babylon has so much Paul Thomas Anderson in that
Oh,
movie.
100%. I mean, it's like an ending of eras. Like it's
Yeah.
very Boogie Nights,
It's
that movie.
The whole plot is pretty much Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
But I felt he did it in a very different way than you did, which was, you know, you were kind of using these Paul Thomas Anderson references and this kind of like the similar or like structural elements of Boogie Nights and stuff like that. But because it related back to the thematic or the character-driven piece of Lawrence, you know, of like a guy who is kind of epitomized by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, well, I think Paul Thomas Anderson's like, I mean, he was so young. He was so prolific instantly. He was so fucking talented. You know, he's so cool. I just went, I was in LA like 2 months ago, and I went to a 70 millimeter screening of Boogie Nights that Paul Thomas Anderson like
Nice.
introduced and was at.
Oh shit.
That's insane.
Him and John C. Reilly, and there was like a sort of early, they did like a little bit of a Q&A before the screening, and then he actually stayed and he watched it. So then at the end of the movie, when the credits were rolling, I like walked out to like leave, and he was there like watching the end of his own movie.
Whoa.
And like he like had tears coming down his face. And Maya Rudolph was like hugging him, and his whole family was there. And I was like in total shock. Like I can't believe I just walked past Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah,
That's
watching
insane.
his own movie.
Yeah, watching his
That's
own movie, like
insane.
it was amazing, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it was like so, it looked fucking amazing, and it
Yeah.
was so good. And you just realize like that movie's actually really funny.
Oh yeah,
funny.
100%.
I rewatch that movie very often.
Yeah,
It's
I love
so-
all his movies so much.
Yeah.
But then it was kind of amazing because it was amazing to see just like the dudes like hanging out outside, like hoping he would come out. And just like all these Lawrences just kind of like
Yeah.
like smoking a cigarette as if their life depended on it, like just trying to be so chill, but you could tell they're like, is
Just
he
like looking over
outside
their
yet?
shoulders.
And you can tell he took some like secret underground like back entrance so he wouldn't have to engage
Yeah.
with those guys, which are probably the bane of his existence.
Yeah,
But
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's like, you know, there's the Apollo 100 needle drop.
yes,
That's like, that's straight from, and there was even moments like, well, what I thought was like a really amazing reversal, and I don't even know if this was intentional, it probably wasn't, but like the scene where Dirk Diggler is trying to get his dick hard in Boogie Nights.
oh yeah,
And then the scene where Lawrence is like about to have an anxiety attack. I don't know if there's any intention there, but I remember being like, this feels like the same thing. But then it was this reversal, and it felt like this, like, honestly, I don't want to say more honest, like, conclusion to that. But then he just, you know, has an anxiety attack, and I'm like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
that it felt so poignant for me because I was expecting the other thing, you know, and then was left with that. And I was like, wow, that's I don't know. It was again the de-romanticization of this like toxic male director stereotype, you know?
Oh, I love that interpretation. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's probably all in my head.
You brought it up before. I was like, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, it's funny because like I think the top letterbox comment for my film is like, they said it's like licorice pizza for people who want to kill themselves.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was like,
actually.
I love that. It's great.
Was this was because the character's name is Alana.
Yeah, it was
that-
not intentional.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually crazy because, I was like making the film and stuff, and then we finished shooting, and then I think it was like December. Like we finished shooting in like April, and then that movie was really under wraps, so nobody even kind of knew what it was about.
Yeah.
And then it was like his next film is about like a 17-year-old boy and an older woman in her 30s named Alana. I was like, what the fuck?
You're like, wait a minute.
And then I watched it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like there's so many parallels to it.
It's
And
so
then the
crazy what
Fablemans came out, and I was like, there's so many parallels too. Like he literally makes a year-end video. There's a panic attack scene.
But I feel like that's when you know that your like antenna is doing the right thing.
No, seriously, I agree.
Yeah, there's that. It happens all the time when there's like these just like parallels. There's years like that where there's like double. Yeah, there's movements.
Things
There's something
that happen
in the
that
air.
when you look back on them, you look back on them and you go like, oh, these people were all kind of tapped in the same way, but not connected in any way. But just like maybe it has to do with just like the collective conscious and just how things are moving and what we're all experiencing at the same time, and what we're reverting back to, what we're thinking about, what we're relating to ourselves, and things like that.
I think the pandemic just made people really like reflective and nostalgic and kind of going back to their childhoods and sort of taking stock of things. And I feel like there's so many movies that came out like in the last 2 years that are these kind of nostalgic love letters to like teenagehood and childhood, and like films about filmmaking and the beauty of art making and stuff. And it's just like we're all trying to like go back in the womb, and we're all like, that was kind of the first year of the pandemic. It's just like, I mean, I was like literally living with my dad in Burlington, and like like listening to Amy Mann, like the Magnolia soundtrack alone in my room, and like
I think I was also listening to that exact soundtrack at that time.
hugging my dad's like elderly dog, and like wearing like my old high school gym uniform and stuff. Smoking weed. So yeah, I feel like we just all had this kind of collective emotional like regression and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it's that. I mean, it happens all the time, but especially during that just collective kind of trauma just brought out a lot of these synchronicities.
And it happens with all forms of art, like any sort of trends and movements in music and things tend to be reactions to just like what we're all feeling and what we're all going through. There's a reason why like people are really into raving and stuff, or people are really into like going to see bands and things like that. It's this idea of just like we're all kind of like we're all just human beings.
Well, we're all
you know what I mean? We're all going through the same shit.
It really makes you believe in magic when shit like that happens, or at least me. Like, I don't know. There's something crazy about that when like you can just meet someone that I remember DMing. I'm not going to name him. He's a Toronto artist, but I remember I was a big fan of his for a while, and I DM'd him just being like, hey, like you're kind of posting stuff that's like similar, that's related to a script I'm writing, and I just like wanted to know if you wanted to take a read.
Don't say his name.
I'm not gonna say his name. And then we got to talking, and he was writing like the exact same story as I was.
Wow, that's so interesting.
And we like, I was living in Vancouver, like we weren't in any contact. And obviously, if anything, I was influenced by what he was doing. But all the stuff that we were writing was like really far away from what we were posting online, and it just felt like it felt terrifying and like the most magical thing that's ever happened.
No, it's a beautiful thing when it happens. Like when you realize that like you're not alone in what you're interested in and what you're trying to create and what you're trying to make, because like as much as we want to be these like ego driven, like individualistic, like beings creating this like one thing that's like so singular in ours, I think there's something beautiful about the fact that like we can like connect it to other works of art, you know?
And I think that's the big thing about it. That's the big point, right? Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna get way too heady if I go into this one.
I also want to let's talk about Ben Kweller for a second.
Oh sure,
because
I love Ben Kweller.
I know you do. I was looking at your Instagram and I was like, and then I realized, and then I saw your post and his name is Lawrence Kweller.
Yeah, that's totally intentional.
Okay.
I just love all of Ben Queller's music and was obsessed with him in high school. And, you know, he's a great Jewish rock star. And I don't know. I mean, there's just like, yeah, like Shaw. Like there's such a purity to those albums.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like a comfort blanket for me or something.
And do you think that, again, had anything to do with like going back home and kind of reverting back into this? Like, I don't know if you were still listen or constantly listen to his music now, but I more so mean in the sense of like, you know, because you had said in the post like maybe my favorite artist ever. So
yeah,
I'm assuming you've been a fan for a very long time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Lawrence Kweller, like, I mean, this is so embarrassing, but like Lawrence is the name of my like childhood teddy bear.
Okay.
And then Kweller, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I think literally just taking things
Right.
from my childhood.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and the whole movie was kind of a process of that. Really, like, you know, like the media class teachers, the name of my real media class teacher in high
Right.
school, and
We both got really nostalgic at that part, learning about Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah. I was watching that and I was just like,
I was like, I
fuck.
remember that class.
Yeah.
I
remember
turned to
that.
Austin. I was like, media studies.
yeah, like, and I feel like the whole thing was just kind of like tracking down stuff that I like, these weird objects from my childhood, like the video camera that he shoots on. So the video camera I made movies on in high school.
Sick.
And you know, yeah, just like going back to the suburbs and like scouting locations and like really shooting in Burlington. And
Right.
I don't know. And then like I tracked down my old media class teacher and like showed him the movie and we had
awesome.
lunch, and he came to the premiere and stuff. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm a really nostalgic person,
Yeah.
and I feel like the reason I'm like making films is because I have to like understand stuff in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
To-
I'm like the same.
I need to like make some kind of thing and like show it to other people to be like, you get it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Like
you tell me what this means about
Right.
me or something.
Do you like? Because I mean, I've definitely had this experience where I've been kind of like writing something, and then after having a full draft of it, I realized that there was like answers, or like maybe not answers, but some kind of element to it that was like telling me how do I phrase this? Telling me about something about myself that I didn't know when I was writing it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy how that can happen. It's like it seems intentional when you reread it, but
Yeah.
you didn't know that
Yeah.
when you wrote it.
It's so true. There's so many subliminal things that
Yeah.
like I didn't even realize, and then people would point them out to me like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so interesting. The video store is called sequels. Like, it's like they're sequels of each other. And I was like, oh yeah, that is cool. Like, I don't know. And then, yeah, I don't know. And it's also weird now, like in the stage that I'm at where like being critic for so long. And then all of a sudden I'm like going to film festivals and like I'm doing interviews and like kind of having to embody it. And there's like
Right.
this weird external object that's like both you, but also not. And then it's really personal, but then people are like, how personal is it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, I still want to be like, you know, like a secret and
Right.
mysterious, but
Yeah.
also like, this is so, I feel exposed at the same time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
ever feel that you just need to like do you ever want to give it all away? Because I feel, no, but because I feel like the easy answer is oftentimes people are like, no, I gotta keep it like that. But I feel like with something that's so detail oriented, it's almost as if I almost feel like you want to like over explain the little things that are there for specific reasons that maybe people didn't catch. And I sort of equate that to like, let's say like American audiences. Do you ever feel that just like you want to just like for everyone to like get it? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No,
You know
I
what
mean,
I
No, I totally.
yeah. I mean, it's really exciting when someone's like, oh, wow, the shoes he's wearing are like Adbusters
That's what I
black
mean.
spot sneakers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, in high school, I was really obsessed with Adbusters.
Yeah. That's these are the kind of things that like fascinate me when I watch everything, because I get super nerdy with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I specifically love stuff like that when it's like the fact we could talk about the shoes. When
Yeah.
you're like, no, that's intentional because you know like and even when you're saying like showing it to like, you know, your media studies teacher, like the idea of being like you want them to get it because like you want to show that like
In a weird way, I mean, you're sharing your soul every time. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get heady again, but you're sharing your soul every time you're making a movie.
Yeah.
And like those little things kind of help to get you there, you know? And so you want people to,
Yeah.
it's, that's kind of just like, you want people to understand it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's the pleasure in filmmaking for me is like those details and the specificity and like how granular you can actually
Yeah.
get. Like,
Yeah.
Well, because there's no limit to it, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can kind of just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, when people are like, oh, must be so annoying having to make so many decisions on set. Like someone's like the blue one or the red one. I'm like, no, I love that.
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
in a weird, like kind of
Yeah.
serial killer way why
You're like, no,
it
no,
should
no.
be red,
it's-
not blue.
I was gonna say, yeah. No, it's supposed to be red.
But it's, I don't like, I find that just so fun. And I think, I was really intimidated when I started directing because I was like, didn't know what I was doing. But then I was like, oh, well, it's actually so fun because it's like, just world building to me is like so exciting. And, I mean, I guess hopefully the more resources you have, even the more like expansive and kind of
Yeah.
detail oriented you can get. I guess I still want to be like rooted in a place of authenticity.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I get to make this next film, like the idea of recreating like, torn curtain.
Oh my god, I can't. This can't come fast enough. Let's just fast forward 5 years. And
Yeah.
I
let's
feel
just
like
get
I'm
this
going to understand you better after watching
You,
this
I know,
movie.
because
Yeah.
this is the shit that I reference
know.
all the time on this podcast.
I mean, it's just so fun. Like I can't think of anything more fun than
Yeah.
like digging into like the costumes and
right,
people's
yeah.
hair
and the
and-
characters and oh my
yeah,
god,
like
yeah.
it was just like a pure joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to also talk about music videos and
Oh,
the
yeah.
jump from music videos to feature length. Because you did a short. There's a short in between. As
Yeah.
well.
I made one short.
But are you still making music videos, or is that sort of era finished?
I mean, I'd love to make more music videos. I feel like they're hard to do because you have to, know bands and
Yeah.
I never got a video just by like pitching on a treatment. Like
Yeah.
I always had like a personal connection to a
Right.
band.
Yeah.
And because I tried to do that, like I would pitch on stuff and I'd stay up until like 6 a.m. writing like a hot chip treatment or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they would, it would always go to the person they'd made like 7 videos with already. So you
Right,
just
right.
feel like you're putting stuff like into a void.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's such an incredible filmmaking practice. And there's so many amazing Canadian music video directors that have done stuff that like is unbelievable. Like Graham Foy is so talented. He has a film called The Maiden that just came out that's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Emily Kai Bach is
Yeah.
a genius.
Yeah.
Scott Cudmore is amazing. Like Peter Huang and Kevin Funk, and
Yeah.
I could just go on and on. And it is like it's an incredible art form. It's just really hard. Like you don't have very much money.
Right.
You really have to be collaborating with people, I think, that really want to make something with you, and they're not
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is marketing, like just make us
Yeah.
look cool, or
Yeah.
or we're afraid of pushing the envelope too much, or we're gonna change our idea, like
Yeah.
But
And
like
then musicians are also really hard to work with.
They are quite hard to work with, I will say.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I've lucked out, and I've worked with like really like Pup, who I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
I guess 4 or 5 music videos for. Like they're unbelievable and so supportive and let us do really, really crazy things.
Yeah.
And then I did a music video with Jeremy Dutcher that was also like one of the best art experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just in terms of like that level of collaboration, I think
Yeah.
it really informed me as a filmmaker, like really changed my life. So yeah, but like I guess I just don't know how to like network or pitch anyone these days.
Yeah.
But
I
I'd
think
love to do more.
But it's cool to build, like you're saying with Pup. I think it's really, I think one of the great things about music videos, to me at least, is when, and like you were even saying with like Hot Chip, like doing their 7th video with the same person again. But it's
Yeah.
like that thing where when you build that relationship and that trust,
Totally.
you kind of then get this like it's really fun to watch when a director works with an artist and they stick together and you go like, whoa, that was the first thing you guys made together and now you're here.
Well, the
It's
ultimate, I think the ultimate
sure.
of this is Licorice Pizza.
True.
You know, like that's,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of like the pinnacle of
Yeah.
what can come out of that kind of collaboration.
yeah.
Yeah, or like Hiro Murai and Donald Glover.
So
like,
true.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like an amazing art form, and it's sad because it's like kind of dying, as you know, like
I know.
in terms of like the budgets and labels not having any money, and there's so much
Also,
factor.
no one like really watches them. That's the thing that
Yeah.
really bums me out the most. Is like I love music videos. I just like love watching them. They're like I love them.
Yeah.
But like apparently a lot of people don't.
No, most people don't.
I'm just like,
It's
dude,
crazy.
You're right. They used to be these like seismic things, like
Yeah.
especially on like Much Music when that was still
Yeah.
around, or like even
years, yeah.
in the early, like, you know, there was still a period of time where like, yeah, if someone put out a music video, it was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it would go on, you know, you'd watch it on YouTube and you'd be excited, and
Yeah.
it would be on blogs and stuff. But
Yeah, or
Yeah.
Vivo.
Yeah.
You're like
Still
ooh,
around,
they got,
yeah.
Is
Oh, yeah.
Vivo still a
Yeah,
thing?
that's still wherever all the music videos are, like, you know, for the major artists are coming out.
No, they're not. Come on,
They're on
Vivo.
YouTube, but they're on the Vivo channel. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they look at the bottom left corner. They say Vivo.
Pretty sure I looked this up like 3 days ago, and I think Vivo is just like, sorry, not to
Oh,
go really
no.
off guard, but I'm
That's
pretty sure
okay.
Vivo is like just like so and so in the studio talking about Pharrell in the studio talking about writing Happy. It's like all that kind of shit.
Maybe
now.
I'm thinking.
oh no,
I don't
that's
know.
devastating.
I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
I did actually look this up like 2 days ago. So I was like, whatever happened to Vivo?
Interesting.
So what are artists doing now? They're just posting like cryptic Instagram
That's
stories.
Well, we were talking about. I have a music video that I'm trying to put out, and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
trying
do
to,
I just go on Instagram and just post it? Like, that seems.
I mean, like it's all crumbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically all media is crumbling. I mean,
Yeah.
same with journalism too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's insane.
yeah.
Especially music journalism. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever read reviews of CDs or albums anymore.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just don't.
I still do just because I like. But that's like my.
And it's probably nostalgic.
It's not even nostalgic. It's just like I'm just such a nerd about that shit
Yeah.
that I'm just like I don't care what Pitchfork says, but I need to critique the criticism because I know
Yeah.
they're gonna get it wrong. It's like that kind of shit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the idea of a Pitchfork album like sinking or swimming in
Yeah,
an artist
yeah.
is like
Yeah.
completely over now. But like
Yeah.
in 2011,
Oh yeah,
it's a
that
huge
was like,
thing.
Yeah. So do you still write it all now?
I hope so.
No, I mean writing. Like, are you still like interviewing? Are you still like being like, journalism? Is that still something you're?
I think I really hope I get to keep doing that.
Okay.
I'm kind of in a transitional period, but I really hope that I get to keep
Yeah.
having both practices happening in my life.
Right.
And also I don't have any other source of income.
But do they
Fair
ever sort of intersect in like a bad way?
I guess that's the thing I'm worried about.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, could I potentially like review a movie negatively and then
And this is what honestly is. I wanted to bring this back to this because this is what I find so fascinating, is that sort of critic versus artist, but you're both. And I liked well, I'm careful how I say this, but I have in the past known some critics who wanted to be artists, and their art. I won't say what it was. My point is, they were critics, and the art that they put out into the world was like really not very good, and it was generally like nobody really fucked with it. But they were a very well respected writer and critic, and I feel like with you, you're lucky in the sense that and I mean this sincerely, I think your movie is incredible.
Thank
And
you.
I think it's a really sick thing that you are a critic that actually also makes good work. And I think that is very rare. I don't think you see that very often because I oftentimes feel like you kind of have to be one or the other. Or most of the time people are one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, you would think that both disciplines would help inform the other, right? Like making films would make me a much better critic because I would understand more of like the actual process and maybe have more empathy for filmmakers, come at it from a different place because I know how hard it is to make something, like let alone something great.
Yeah.
And, know more about the craft of it and sort of why the film's constructed or the choices or technical decisions or just the craftsmanship of it in a way more immersive way. And then also like obviously the critical practice and the years of interviewing filmmakers and just thinking critically about art. Of course, that's going to make you a better artist. But like you said about Cahiers de Cinema, like I'm like reviewing Angry Birds too. Like, I'm not like, coming up with auteur theory. And like, deciding that Howard Hawks like birthed like modern cinema and reclaiming Hitchcock. I'm like, so what if it happens if I'm like, then I have to go. The producers of Angry Birds 3 are like, we want you to punch up the female characters, but you have a hawk that we really think you'd have a good take on, but you were a total bitch and panned us. So I don't know if you get this job anymore. Like I don't. It's like a weird conflict of interest. It's a weird thing. Yeah.
No, it's like I can't not bring it back to that because I find that like I'm like literally obsessed with this concept of both,
Yeah.
Because I do think it's rare. I do think it's rare to be good at both.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's sick.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that I really get to keep doing both. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that I keep getting to it at the very least, keep interviewing filmmakers and stuff. But I guess that could also be weird at some point because, I don't know. It's also rare that, because I think sometimes like it's the relationship between critics and filmmakers sometimes is so like sycophantic or strange. So, and as a critic, you do have to be kind of uncompromising and sort of like genuine about like your intentions and actually be able to hold people accountable and stuff. Yeah. And I think sometimes because of that like tenuous relationship, like sometimes you just want to be friends with people that you're interviewing or get them to like you or be considered a peer of the artist or something. So you're not really like holding people accountable. And I feel like if you start doing it, then those lines even get more blurred. Yeah,
because then you're kind of picking like who am I talking to right now, the critic or the artist? You have to like
like I find the most engaging conversations between a director and another director. I find the most engaging conversations are between a director and another director.
Absolutely.
Versus a director and a critic.
Yeah. Well, it's horrible to talk about yourself. Yeah. Like it really is like punishing. So if you're talking to another filmmaker, then I think it does take the pressure off a bit.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe there's like a way to even get more truth out of that and more accountability in just the fact that you're both there.
Yeah. I mean, it's so rare also that I've interviewed people and it's been like in any way like confrontational or antagonistic.
Yeah.
It happened once with Xavier Dolan. I interviewed him, and it was when Life and Death of John F. Donovan came out.
Oh damn.
What happened?
Well, I was just like, I was working at TIFF at the time, so I'd actually seen like the original like 3 or 4 hour cut that still had Jessica Chastain in it before so I told him that, and then then I was talking about it, and it was kind of it was conversation. I was kind of like, you've never had like a big failure before, like your whole career has been like, you're like your first movie played at Cannes, and like you've won the Palme d'Or, and you're not even like 30 yet. Like, are you ready like in your life to have like a critical like and commercial failure? Like, what will that be like? And he's like, you seem really worried about me. And I'm like, I am worried about you. And he's like, do you think I made a bad movie? And I was like, yes. And it was really like, quite tense for a second. Damn. And he's like, well, I can't worry about that. I've just got to keep living my life. And he's totally right.
Yeah.
But it's like so rare that you have conversations like that with people. Most of the time it's like, and I love a lot of his other movies too.
Yeah.
And I look up to him and stuff, but it's so rare that I think you have like interviews with a filmmaker where you don't have. I think I go into almost every situation in my life wanting people to like me.
Yeah, totally. I think we all have that.
Yeah, or worrying people hate me. So yeah.
Which also sometimes feels like a quintessentially Canadian thing.
Totally.
I don't know. Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but like I remember like like in New York, there's not really that atmosphere. It doesn't feel like the same degree. It's kind of like you fuck up and there's just I don't know.
No, like when someone doesn't like me, I'm like, what?
It hurts. It fucking hurts.
Well, and it's like this whole thing of like you can't really be straightforward with people and be like, this wasn't good or these are the things I didn't like. Like there's not actual like kind of critical feedback where in a way that's like positive and actually proactive of like, here's what I like about this movie. Here's what, like, I don't know, like true actual criticism is rare.
Well, and that comes back. That kind of comes back to Lawrence, like this like hypersensitivity of I don't want to call it sensitivity. That's the wrong word, but like. I don't know.
It's fragile. It's
a fragile ego thing
that I think we all have a little bit of.
That always stems from kind of a
insecurity,
and also kind of a delusion of grandeur that you're gonna be a genius.
Yeah.
You know, like you're that much more fragile when you haven't been confronted with the idea that you're not, you know, Paul Thomas Anderson.
or just the delusion that your idea is maybe not the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That there's...
And I think maybe this comes from living in kind of like Canada where, you know, in my school, there wasn't any other kid that wanted to be a director, you know? And if there is, there maybe is one or two. And so you're kind of like, and this is kind of something that Lawrence goes through in the film is like, there's this girl who's better at it than him, you know?
Totally.
And, you know, that might happen really often in an American school, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot more people who might want to be filmmakers because it's a lot more of a real dream to have there. A lot more of a possibility, it feels like.
Yeah,
Whereas
I agree.
you know what I mean? That could be part of it. I don't know. And then so you grow up your whole life being the filmmaker, like I did, you know? And then all of a sudden you go somewhere where you go to university where you're not the only filmmaker.
Yeah.
There's everyone else wants to be a filmmaker. And that's going to be really challenging to a fragile ego.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah.
It's true.
Well,
yeah,
we all have them.
I mean, I think there's something also just about like when all of media is like made for you, and there's so many of these movies where it's like you're special and you have a little special interest, and like the world's gonna give you everything you deserve because like if you've been bullied in any way for your differences, it's because people don't like think you're special enough. But everyone is going to recognize your talent and genius and give you like a slow clap, standing ovation.
Do you think it's a millennial thing? Because I almost feel that like it's this kind of like boomer parenting thing that like kind of pushed millennial preteens, teenagers into this sort of like the kind of, you know, you can be whatever you want kind of thing. And like, I'm not saying that you can't. You can do whatever you want. Of course you can. But like, there was definitely a bit of false.
I think it's less so the idea that you can do whatever you want, and more so the idea that you are like the most special person ever, right? But like, think about the movies that we grew up on. It's like Harry Potter being like this orphan child who happens to be, you know, this, you know, happens to be some kind of happens to have some kind of destiny awaiting him. And I feel like we all
Seth Cohen.
Yeah, like,
Did your parents make you feel like that? Like, were they really supportive? And oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But I think it was the culture really that like that did it in.
Yeah.
And especially for white men, like, you know, I got to see myself like, or like someone who looked just like me be a wizard.
Yeah.
Go to fucking Hogwarts.
There was one black wizard, but that guy didn't get much screen time.
Like it's yeah.
It's so sad that I can't even remember his name.
I can picture him, but I can't remember his name either.
God, that's awful. That would never happen now, though.
No.
Hogwarts would be stacked.
Oh yeah.
And then this okay, yeah.
We don't need to talk about Harry Potter.
But you know what I mean? There's a lot of movies like that
No,
at that
totally.
time. So to grow up on that and then all of a sudden be thrown into like a really different world.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why your story is like really relevant too, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I just haven't seen like pretty much any teen movie where the message is like, you're not talented.
Yeah.
Like
you still
or
have
at the very
work.
least,
You
you're
still
not
have
as
work.
talented as you think.
Yeah.
You are.
I think my takeaway was just the fact that like, you know, you still have a lot of work to do before you can walk the walk, basically.
Totally. Like I'd love to make like a trilogy of movies about him.
Yeah.
And like
that'd be sick.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
keep following him kind of like Before Sunset or something like throughout his life, you know?
Yeah, just another little
because I'd be interesting to see how that person changes over time and you know, does he just become normal
that's
and go back
I love that
into
idea.
the suburbs like at some point, you know, as an adult. Yeah, my parents always just my parents' thing was always like being an artist is indulgent. That's what they would say to me. Like it's indulgent to think that you could do that. But I was like obviously so like extra and creative and stuff. Like they couldn't really hamper it down, but they did make me feel sometimes bad about it. Like,
I'm sorry to hear
so
that.
I think that's why I became a critic, because it was sort of like a safe space to kind of like
Right, it's the balance.
get close to it and sort of, I think a lot of critics feel this way too. It's like criticism in some ways is like autobiography. Like you're still through expressing your own opinions about art. That is an art practice in itself.
Totally.
And it's still you engaging with that, still you being a creative person, still kind of like tackling those ideas, but you don't really have to run the same risk of like, first of all, how hard it is to make anything, and then also like, acknowledging like that this could fail or suck or be bad. Or,
And then also putting like such a display of yourself out, it's not quite to the same degree.
Yeah, it's not. But yeah, you do get like a little thrill by like going to Soundscapes and seeing them like, tape up your record review of a Stereo Lab record.
All right. I think we've just about wrapped it up.
Yeah. Unless is there anything else
you'd
you want to
like to
shout
take
out?
a little pre-photo?
We have to shout out Daniel Barna for setting this up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to shout out I like movies. You can
Hell yeah.
I think it's still playing at the Carlton, and it'll be on VOD soon, so you can rent it, I think, on all the usual platforms.
Sick.
And everybody who worked on the film that were really, really talented. And thank you both for having me on. This was so fun.
No,
Such a
this
great
is
conversation.
Yeah, thanks for coming. This is awesome.
Honestly, like I've said it a million times, but like I really liked the movie,
Thank
and
you.
I
He
want
likes
everyone
movies and he
listening.
liked this
I
movie.
really want everyone listening to go check this movie out.
Yeah,
It's
seriously.
fucking awesome.
It's so good.
Thanks.
Chandler, thank you so much for coming through.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I'm sorry for spoiling Succession.
I'm going to go watch it right now.
She is a slut, but X thinks it's sexy. Sex reminds her of eating spaghetti. I am wasted, but I'm ready. If you wanna move it, so why don't you make it go? Prove to everybody who doesn't understand all the nights, all the fights. You are out of sight. Some say more with their hand. I'm running as fast as I can.